Hello, this is going to be my review of the Kaiser Baas X230, or Kaiser Baas, I don't know how to pronounce it, my apologies, X230 action camera, a relatively budget-friendly action camera that we recently got from Best Buy for around $70 plus tax. I'm not guaranteeing that's the price you'll pay, but to be perfectly honest, my issue with this camera is that given how many other cameras there are, given the competition, despite the fact that there are some good features here, like a slow motion recording feature, time-lapse feature, somewhat decent photos for an action camera, unfortunately there is just too much competition, and it's just very easy to get another camera for much less money, less than $50 or around $50, certainly less than $70, and to have much better video quality than this. I had another action camera. It was called the Campark X25, not this one, but a different one, for between $40 and $50. Campark, C-A-M-P-A-R-K, X25. And it simply is just much better than this camera. And I have nothing against this company. I'm not trying to say anything negative. However, given the price, unfortunately, if this was less than $25, I would say this is a good purchase. But for $70, unfortunately, you can go on Amazon, do your research, look at some sample video tests, and find a better camera with better quality for less money. And which is unfortunately the reason why I don't think this is necessarily, just in my personal opinion, great value for the money, because as you're going to see in the next few clips, the video tests I made, I took some footage and the quality just appears to be a little bit grainy. This is just my opinion, but I did notice that the footage wasn't as clear as I thought it would be. Supposedly 1080p footage at 60 frames per second. It just looked a little bit grainy. And even though it wasn't very light outside, it wasn't perfectly sunny. I do have another camera, the Campark X25, which would record better quality video for less money. So maybe 10 years ago, if this came out, it would certainly be a great value for money. But the reality is that for $70 nowadays, you can buy a better camera, and by better I mean higher quality footage, very clear footage. Not grainy footage. Of course, you can buy a GoPro camera or another brand that has cameras starting at least $200. But if you do want to buy a budget-friendly action camera, you can get one for around $50 or less if you just shop around and look at videos on Amazon, other people's videos. But unfortunately, I have to say that with this camera, it just doesn't match up to the quality of the other camera I have, which was less than $50, which means that for $70, I don't think this is my favorite camera. So I'm going to let you judge for yourself if you like the video quality. I just thought it looked a little bit dark and a little bit grainy. It was cloudy, but despite that, I still think it looked grainy when I looked at the footage on full screen on my laptop compared to the other camera I have for less than $50. Unfortunately, this video quality didn't really measure up. There are some accessories. There is the underwater housing, of course, but with all the features that are included, like the slow motion feature, time-lapse, all the accessories, I mean, the reality is, well, I didn't try out the time-lapse feature. I got this mainly as a camcorder. And unfortunately, the reality is that for what it is supposed to be, a camcorder, for the price and considering how many other cameras there are on Amazon which potentially have better quality, like the other camera I have, the Campark X25, C-A-M-P-A-R-K X25, it's just difficult to say that this is great value for money. You may feel differently, you may use it for time lapses, but yes, it looks great, it has great texture, it feels very solid, very rugged, very durable. You got the underwater housing, you got the accessories. Unfortunately, it's difficult for me to say that this is something I would buy again or buy as a present for someone, just because of the fact that the video quality looks a little bit grainy, and that's primarily what I would be using this for. A camcorder. I didn't try the other settings like 2.7K. I didn't try 720p 120 frames per second. I did try the default setting, which was default resolution setting was 1080p 60 frames per second. I was not very impressed. So this is my review of this camera. I didn't try the 2.7K resolution. I didn't try the 720p 120 frames per second. But so you could say this review is maybe incomplete, and of course I totally acknowledge that. But I'm just saying that for the setting that I record most of my videos on with my other cameras, 1080p 60 frames per second typically, or at least 1080p, maybe 30 frames per second, maybe 60. Unfortunately, this did not really impress me very much. So I guess you could say my review is incomplete because I didn't try every single resolution setting. However, considering that my setting of choice is 1080p 60 frames per second, it's difficult for me to say that I really liked the video quality. Even though I will say that you may feel differently if you're using the camera for just action adventure type videos where footage, maybe it's not so important that the quality is crystal clear, but given that there is a lot of cameras on Amazon for around $50 or less, you might be better off shopping around if you want. But I will say that there are a lot of features here, as we discussed in previous video, time-lapse, slow motion. We didn't try out every feature, but as soon as I saw that the quality for 1080p 60 frames per second was not stellar, it was just difficult for me to keep going and make some more videos in the freezing cold. So you're going to see some clips. Feel free to judge for yourself. You may totally disagree with me. This is just, all of this is my own personal opinion. I'm not trying to say anything too negative, but I'm just saying that compared to the other camera that I have, the other action camera for less than $50, the Campark X25, C-A-M-P-A-R-K, unfortunately, I think that this falls a little bit short. But just my own personal opinion. You might feel differently. You might like the quality. But in this day and age, there's many cameras that you can get. This is just one of the few models that one of the few cameras that they have for less than $100 on Best Buy. But of course, if you go to Amazon, you can find other cameras, many kinds of brands. But of course, make sure you do your research. Go look at YouTube videos with sample footage, and just see for yourself which camera you think looks the best in terms of video quality. But we have some accessories here. Underwater housing. This was my short review of the Kaiser Baas X230, Kaiser Baas, sorry if I didn't pronounce that correctly, action camera, and the next few clips will just be some video tests that we made with 1080p 60 frames per second, and I'll let you judge for yourself what you think of the video quality. Personally, this is not my favorite camera, but again, this is all just my own personal opinion. I found the footage to be a little bit grainy. Thank you for watching this video, and have a nice day. Hello, this is a 1080p 60 frames per second video test with the Kaiser Baas action camera. I think it's X230 or something like that. I don't remember, X230. This is a video and audio test, 1080p 60 frames per second, just to see how good the video quality is, how good the audio quality is. We have the underwater housing on right now with this camera, and we're just making some videos. 1080p 60 frames per second with the underwater housing currently on. .1080p 60 frames per second video test with the Kaiser Baas X230 action camera, video and audio test to see how well you can hear me right now. 1080p 60 frames per second. 1080p 60 frames per second with the underwater housing on. 1080p video test, 60 frames per second, underwater housing on. And welcome. This is a 1080p 60 frames per second video test with the Kaiser Baas, or Kaiser Baas. I don't know how to pronounce it, I apologize. X230 action camera that we got from Best Buy recently, and we're just seeing how good the video quality is. We have the underwater housing on right now. Don't know if you can hear me right now. 1080p 60 frames per second. How good is the video quality? We're going to find out. I'm very excited to transfer this footage to our computer to find out if this actually has decent quality. A lot of cameras, they say they're 1080p HD resolution, but you know what? It doesn't mean that that's necessarily the case once you've actually had a chance to look at your footage. So we are just going to check out the video quality as soon as we have a moment. 1080p 60 frames per second with the underwater housing on. I have no idea if you can hear me right now. We are just around at the tennis courts. Just going to see if there's any kind of stabilization here. Can't wait to look at this footage. I'm very excited.